And here's how the two sides line up. Halifax take on Leigh. And for Matt Callan's Halifax, they'll have Miles Greenwood at fullback. On the wings, Paul White and Rob Warrancy. In the centres, John Goddard and James Halley. The halfbacks are Danny Jones and Ben Black. And in the forwards, Jim Gannon, Bob Bezic will captain them at hooker. Play hooker, Neil Cherryholm is in prop. Back row, Paul Smith and Stephen Bannister. Jacob Fairbank at loose forward. And on the bench for Halifax, Dylan Nash, Michaela Azu, Sean Penkovic, Sam Barlow, coach Matt Callan. And for the Leigh Centurions, captain at fullback, Stuart Donlan. On the wings, Steve Maiden, Dean McGilvery, and centres Stuart Littner and Mick Nannan. The halves are Martin Ridyard and whole-bound Jamie Ellis. And a front row of David Mills, John Duffy and Chris Hill. Second row of Andy Thornley and Tommy Golden, and loose forward, James Taylor. And on the bench for Leigh, Robbie Hunter-Paul, Stephen Nash, Tom Armstrong, Adam Higson, and the coach is Ian Millward. Well, despite the rain continuing to fall on Blackpool, the towns of Halifax and Leigh have travelled in huge numbers to come and support their sides. Fancy dress all around this wonderful stadium on the seaside as Matt Callan prepares to leave the dressing room and leave it to his players. Ben Black to the fore. The Leigh Centurions, they know the last time they met, they got embarrassed by Halifax. They'll want revenge. They'll want to entertain their fans. They'll want to lift the cup final trophy. They'll have to get through Halifax to do that. It's time now to go to your commentary team of Barry McDermott, Terry O'Connor, and led, of course, by Bill Arthur.
Thanks, Brian. The theme this afternoon was supposed to be fancy dress. A prize of tickets to the Challenge Cup final for the best fancy dress outfit. I think the best dress this afternoon is wet weather gear. Could need it as the evening goes on with the rain coming in off the Irish Sea, but it's not going to dampen the enthusiasm of these supporters. Both anticipating success for their sides. For the Halifax fans, anticipating more success after last year's grand final glory. They seem to have the knack for rising to the occasion on these big occasions to Halifax at the moment. But the Centurions on the march as far as the championship goes. They would be top, of course, were it not for that points deduction for the salary cap infringement, and still looking a very good bet to go all the way in that competition, and hoping to go all the way for a record third time in this competition. In their fourth Northern Rail Cup final are the Centurions. For Halifax, it's a first Northern Rail Cup final as a team, but there are plenty of players out there on both sides with plenty of experience in this particular occasion, and that is bound to come into play. Very few rookies in this particular cup competition as far as these two sides go. And despite the adverse weather conditions and not particularly pleasant driving conditions, the fans have made the journey in good numbers. And the referee this afternoon from Warrington, Mr. Thomason. Matt Thomason gaining an experience and officiating in one of his biggest games of his career. And as well as the rain, we have a blustery wind blowing here. So that's going to influence things as well. And first touch of the ball will go to the Leigh Centurions, with Danny Jones of Halifax about to get us underway. When the ball stays on the tee, but that's indicative of the blustery conditions here. It's one win apiece in the championship between these two so far this season. Both have been high-scoring affairs. This one is underway. The prize this time is Cup glory in the Northern Rail. And here is Chris Hill, Warrington bound, on the back of some great performances in the colours of the Leigh Centurions. He'll get his chance in Super League next season.
Well, Halifax are going to want to start this game very physical, unsettle Leigh Centurions really. I'm sure the first set of six that Leigh will have this ball, it's just about getting to the kick. Don't make any mistakes. Play disciplined type of rugby. Now Chris Hill is doing his second hit-up of the game. Halifax condense the defence, defending very tight. They want to set the marker down early on.
There's John Duffy appearing in his fifth Northern Rail final. He's got bags of experience then. He's lost and won it with this Leigh club. Previously, the first kick of the game is a deep one, and Greenwood watches that one sail over his head and out of play.
Well, Ellis with a strong kick then. The worry for Leigh Centurions is John Duffy is only just getting back into this line, holding his ribs or possibly his shoulder. It's going to take him 10 or 12 seconds just to get his breath back, get back into this game. As soon as he got a quick play of the ball, he was up and away. That's the danger Halifax have to guard against.
Greenwoods and Warrancy now. Here's Ben Black, and Black has gone for an early 40-20 here, has he? But it skips infield. Certain that's what he was looking for. This, as Rod was pointing out earlier on, a shortish pitch here, this Bloomfield Road soccer ground. Of course, they had some heroics in the Premier League here last season, but not enough. They're bound for the Championship. But this afternoon, the pitch given over to the Northern Rail Cup final.
Well, that's the intention from Halifax, kicking on the second play, knowing that the conditions not the best. The pitch is greasy. They know that the ball will be slippy, and as I said earlier on, the forwards from Halifax really do look up for this game.
Here's David Mills, one of the switches that Ian Millward made from that victory over Batley, with Mills coming into the starting lineup in place of Steve Nash, who goes onto the bench. Little kick ahead for McGilvery to chase, too long, and finds touch in the corner, but Leigh will be happy with that. Pin Halifax down that end of the field.
Ridyard just decides to kick it into the pockets. Maybe it's not a bad result. Rob Warrancy consistently makes more metres than anybody else in a Halifax shirt, and it's from those kick returns where he gets most of his metres. On June the 2nd, when Halifax beat Leigh, we saw them systematically grind Leigh down with punishing run-ins and punishing kick returns, and maybe that's the intention Leigh have when they're defending Miles Greenwood there.
Goddard, first touch of the ball for him, and Goddard back in action after a lengthy absence. First game for a month for John Goddard, been out with a rib problem. Only had his first full contact training session on Monday, last Monday, so it's quite an introduction back into the first team for him. Here's Jones now. On Fairbank is dumped to the ground by some strong Leigh defence. That's the 5th tackle. Jones standing back, but in fact it's Bezic who puts the kick in and gets that one on the back of the breeze all the way down the field, and it'll be Leigh's turn to tap on the 20 and restart.
Well, Bob Bezic will be happy with that. He was just kicking for distance because his Halifax teammates struggling to get going forward. Only 17 metres that they made with the ball in hand, so he knows that it's going to be very tough against this Leigh Centurion side this afternoon.
Leigh very impressive in their victory over the Batley Bulldogs last week. 40 points to 16 they won against the 3rd place Bulldogs at Mount Pleasant. Never an easy trip that, especially on the back of a nightmare journey as they had that day, so they've recovered well from that defeat by Halifax early in June. In fact, they've won all 4 since then. Here is Hill, and that's good strength from him. He's not the biggest of prop forwards, Chris Hill, but he bangs above his weight. He certainly does, and that's the 5th tackle. And now then, Ellis, first kick goes to the air, and that's the first test, maybe for White instead. It's Maiden with the overhead kick. That was audacious stuff, and it's Greenwood, and they were offside, were Leigh. I think they weren't anticipating Steve Maiden's bit of improv there. First penalty of the game.
Well, both teams looking to use that kicking game. This is one of the more unconventional kicks that you'll see. The fact that Maiden kicks it over his head means all his teammates are offside.
Just inside their own half now are Halifax. Here's Jim Gannon looking to round off his career in the British game with a bit of silverware. Was on the losing side for Widnes last year against Batley here in that dramatic 25-24 final. Jim the Cannon Gannon, as he's known in certain circles. There's Cherryholm now. 4 tackles gone this set of 6 as Bezic looks left, goes right, short ball finds Black, and Black had Fairbank on his shoulder but couldn't get the pass away on the last. Jones hoists the kick, crossfield. Warrancy will collect and lose the ball at the same time. And McGilvery did enough there to put him off with the challenge. Matt Calland, well, he knows the chance, possibly went begging for his side there.
Was he tackled in mid-air? Let's have a look at this from Rob. I think he's tackled in mid-air, Bill. McGilvery, in all fairness, had his head down and probably just had to secure the threat and make sure that Rob Warrancy didn't didn't get over him, but I think that was a penalty.
Nannin has lost the ball. Nannin has had the ball stolen, says referee Matthew Thomason, and the penalty goes in favour of the Leigh Centurions.
Well, this is poor play from Ben Black. He goes into the tackle, there's 3 in attendance, and you can see he just strips that ball right in front of the referee, Matt Thomason. Here it is. Yep, he called it right, Barry.
He landed in his arms.
And the other question is, did he have control of the ball? That's the other question the referee must have asked himself.
I don't think he did. But it was certainly the first chance of the game, that was, and it came the way of Halifax. But now it's the Centurions, balloons swirling around the pitch in this breeze. Sky is brightening. It's the brightest it's been all day, and this is bright from Ellis, but a bit of skullduggery going on there, and some obstruction, says the referee, and the penalty will go to Halifax.
There's an obstruction on Jim Gannon. Just look at the number 58. I think it's Chris Hill, runs right into him. Ellis is furious there, he's away. That's no penalty, he's away. Look at the reaction.
It's a let-off for Halifax there. And the play really is swinging from end to end here. And the penalty gives Halifax the chance to move inside the Leigh half. Here is Gannon, and Gannon thumps into the tackle from James Taylor, making his 150th Leigh appearance today, Taylor. And then Cherry home. Big drive from him. 3 tackles gone, and they're only 20 metres away. Black, Greenwood, Nannin has a hold of him.
Yes, sir, Dave. Wait, go.
Donlan in there with the tackle as well. Jim Gannon once more. That's the 5th tackle, and Ben Black. It's time they're running it until Jones puts boot to ball, and across sweeps the superbly experienced fullback Stuart Donlan to tidy that up, and then goes Steve Maiden across the field. Bang in front of his own posts, in front of his own supporters, Maiden. McGilvery trying to duck under the challenges, and Halifax trying to restrict their progress.
Well, this was brave play by Stuart Donlan, and you can see now, look at the intent from Halifax. They really have up the ante now. The outside backs for Leigh struggling to get forward. Now it's left to the big man, David Mills, who gets behind the ruck. He thought he spotted a gap.
Ellis. Deep kick from him, and I don't think this one is going to go all the way. No, Greenwood is going to have to field that and run it back, and faced by Centurions chasing him, looks for some sort of gap in the line. There isn't one there, though, because Goulden makes the tackle, assisted by Chris Hill, and then off goes Warranty over the 20-metre line for Halifax.
Well, I got a stat off the Halifax coaching staff that said Miles Greenwood last weekend on 29 carries made 197 metres. There you see Brian Noble, Martin Gonzalez and Matt Calland.
Surrender! 4! Stand!
There is Miles Greenwood, had a wretched season last year, but had much the better of things in 2011. Injuries really hampered him last year. Here's Ben Black. Black will hoist this one. Too deep, that is, although everybody stood and watched, and Black might get there. It's headed up in the air by Ellis. Chance here for Warranty. Warranty on the outside. Ridyard couldn't stop him. The referee, I think, will go to the video ref to see what happened when that ball came down, but for my mind, it ricocheted off Ellis and landed in the arms of Paul Smith, and Halifax took full advantage of that. The real indecisiveness from the Centurions.
Well, Stuart Donlan, when this ball goes up, we're checking for offside. Stuart Donlan, he pulls back from this ball. Now you can see he comes forward, he puts them on, that comes off Jamie Ellis's head. It goes back off Jim Gannon, and then it's Paul Smith who's the first to react. He picks the ball up. There's not a problem with this, I don't think, Bill. Ben Black, he runs forward, he puts all the players from Halifax onside. Is the lead player taken out? No. That's play on.
It's a towering kick, especially in this wind. There's no doubt that players are in front of Ben Black. There's several, in fact, the majority of the Halifax team is in front of him. But his urgency to get near this ball, never let a rugby league ball bounce. Now here is where they're looking for a possible knock-on. Is there a knock-on off? I think it just hits shoulders, heads.
It's a header from Ellis.
That comes off Ellis, doesn't it? Comes off Ellis. It might have come off Ben Black's head. But Jim Gannon, he pats that back to Paul Smith.
Where's the penalty, Phil?
Phil Bentham is the video ref. He hasn't looked at the grounding. Halifax, the shoulders slumping a bit. They think they know what's coming. And it's offside, says the video ref. Warrensey cannot believe that. Jim Gannon is the player who's adjudged to have been inside the 10.
Well,
Gannon's touch came when he was in an offside position, says the video ref. Well, Leigh very lucky to get away with that. The way they stood and watched that ball.
Let's go, mate. Let's go.
I think it's an indication of this swirling wind. We're probably going to get fed up of saying it, but as soon as you put that ball up, and I think passes need to be spot on, or they'll be flapping about like a plastic bag in the wind.
Warrensey denied. And instead, from the penalty, Leigh immediately on the attack.
Go.
Nannin plays the ball. Here's James Taylor. Duffy weighing up the options. Ellis, Ridyard now. Ridyard saw the gap and gets the ball down in reverse, I think. And it's going to be another. His back-to-back decisions.
Just want to check for the
for the video ref.
And I just want to check the grounding, please.
The referee Thomason not certain in the build-up to that whether there was an obstruction. I'm not certain whether Ridyard got this ball down.
Well, Leigh send the number of players through. You can see Chris Hill. He runs into Stephen Bannister. Stephen Bannister's pushing off, but then is it Stuart Littler? Does he take Danny Jones out?
No, I have no problem with that, Tez. Watch what Danny Jones does. You see the 4 Halifax defenders all push on. I think Danny Jones runs into him. He needs an Oscar for that. On goal line defence, you can't afford to leave it in the decision of the video referee or the referee. Get on and do your job.
Well, this time he's looked at the grounding, and is this going to be the first try of the game? It's another disallowed try. Penalty again for obstruction. Stuart Littler was guilty of obstruction. That's the view of Phil Bentham.
But what?
It's not my view, it's the video ref.
Do you know what, Stuart Littler, you practice this in training all the time. What's the point in sending dummy runners through when Danny Jones has obviously took the wrong option? Look at him. He can't just get out the way, Stuart Littler.
I think Matt Callan will be getting a message on to all his defensive line. Don't leave it in the hands of the judges.
So, Leigh now feeling hard done by. Just a moment ago it was Halifax chuntering about that. This time it's the Centurions.
Well, for me, that was a try from Ridyard. There was no problem with the grounding. But you've just got to get on with it. 2 results. One has gone against Leigh, one's gone against Halifax. Matt Callan throwing his hands up in the air, not happy with something.
Well, Bob Bezic was playing for that penalty. Alan Matt Diskin.
Cherry home, trying to spin out of the challenge, makes a few metres for his side. Now here's young Jacob Fairbank, really has grown into that loose forward role for the side. Still only 21 years of age, and Black fancies another one up in the air.
Oh.
Donlan doesn't fancy that. It's going to hang in the air and then bounce over the dead ball line. Really is a wicked wind swirling around here, and even a fullback as experienced as Stuart Donlan here having trouble in this wind.
Everybody in the ground, fans, spectators, coaching, just say, do your best, Stu. That is a heck of a kick, a heck of a wing, and a very, very important job for both sets of backfield players.
So still 0-0 here, but we've had 2 video ref decisions in the space of 60 seconds, both denying tries. Taylor just outside that Halifax 40. Here's Ellis now. Thornley, who was named in the starting lineup, due to be on the bench for the Centurions, but promoted to the starting lineup by coach Ian Millward. Bezic misses with the tackle on Hill. That's the 5th tackle. Now then, will Leigh go to the air? Ellis has time if he chooses to. Instead, he gets the ball out wide to Nannin. It's Nannin along the ground. McGilvray chases, and back goes Warrancy to claim that ball. Secures it. A little bit of pressure.
Leigh really turning the tourniquet now, really twisting it tight, trying to suffocate this backfield three. Rob Warrancy, nowhere to run. Exceptional marker work, and it's got to be good line speed. They've got to nullify the threat of Halifax.
Bezic, here is Fairbank now, and Fairbank immediately clamped by Chris Hill and James Taylor. That's the fifth tackle. Good defensive set this from the Centurions. Jones under pressure, gets that one down the middle of the field, but Donlan time to gather it, and then finds Steve Maiden, and Maiden looping around to look for his other opposite wingman, McGilvray, but it's a good chase by Haley with the tackle.
Well, he was caught in two minds, Steve Maiden. He nearly offloaded that ball to Dean McGilvray, who was in a better position than him. A lot of the Leigh players were struggling in that set of six to get back behind the ball, to bring it forward. Both teams are really ripping into each other in this game.
Mills, good strong run from him. Haley down low to make the tackle, and the Halifax defence a little bit at sixes and sevens, but then that's good defence. That's a very good shot from Paul Smith, and Ridyard is clattered, and that's a speculator, and it's come up nicely for Halifax. And Leigh, it was their turn to be at sixes and sevens there.
Well, this game of chess is getting more and more interesting. I think coaches will understand the importance of the kicking game, and they'll say, whenever you see that fourth, fifth tackle player lining up to kick the ball, get out and pressure him. Don't let him have it all his own way. Let's help out those back three players by not giving the kickers time and space.
Goddard takes the tackle. Goddard back in the side. Lee Patterson out, and due to undergo surgery next Tuesday, in actual fact, on this knee problem. Not certain whether it's ligament damage or cartilage. Paul Smith finds Greenwood. Greenwood, great ball, finds Black. Black's pass is a hopeful one, finds Bezic. Oh, the ball's batted down, it's back to six, says the referee. Don't panic, Jacob. And Fairbank takes the tackle. And they've got tackles in the bag here. Have Halifax, ball out wide, and that's good defence. And Maiden bundling Paul White into touch. And Matt Calland saying you didn't need to panic there.
Well, you talk about shape in attack, but you've got to have shape in defence as well. And Steve Maiden, he has an idea where White is, and there's no way that he's going to get around him and score that try.
I think that's a poor option from Stephen Bannister. He's got 3 on 2, passes the ball to the outside man. He makes it simple for that defence.
Here is Stuart Littler, another player who was due to be on the bench, or no, I beg your pardon, he was going to be in the second row, Littler, but he's moved to the centres by Ian Millward, the 32-year-old Irish international now. And the knock-on from Tommy Goulden, and Halifax will get the possession back on the Leigh 20.
Well, he just bobbles this ball. You can see it's Fairbank who's all over him. He just can't control that ball, Tommy Goulden. He's bringing it out 20 yards from his line. And now Leigh under a bit of pressure. Been played at a frantic pace this game.
But still waiting for the first points. Both sides disallowed a try by the video ref.
Okay. Working out.
Just a breather.
Shoot, make sure that's packed in.
I'm sure, Bill, there's going to be a lot of points scored in this game.
Stay out. Stand square to that.
Here's Goddard now.
What?
Plays the ball on that Leigh 20, or tries to, and Stuart Littler is adjudged to have been interfering as Goddard was trying to get to his feet. And Bob Bezic looks to the sidelines for some instruction, consults his teammates, and they've decided to take the tap, not go for goal. And so Cherryholm drives the ball in. Mills and Duffy do the tackling. Bezic now, Black, short ball finds Paul Smith, and the maths teacher from Swinton plays the ball about 10 metres out. Here's Jim Gannon. Gannon edging closer to that Leigh line. Bezic, Cherryholm, virtually back to where Gannon was tackled, not making any progress at the moment, but battering away at this Leigh defence. Black, short pass finds Greenwood, and Greenwood will go in at the corner. Now then, is it going to be a hat-trick for the video ref? You know, I think it is.
Phil, just checking obstruction.
And it's obstruction again, it's the flavour of the day. Obstruction is the call from the referee once more.
Well, let's have another look at this. Left to right, players running through. I think it's Dave Hallett who runs through as a foil. Nothing wrong with that, that's a try. Fantastic play.
Did he ground the ball?
Yes. Yes, he did.
Well, this again comes to the read from the defensive player, and Dean McGilvray, who flies out the line, he takes the wrong option, and I do not see a problem with this try. Watch the winger. He comes in, caught in two minds. He chooses to run at that man. Paul Smith does his job. He goes through as the dummy. Miles Greenwood goes right through.
Oh, he can't surely disallow this one, because
they're having a look at it a few times, Bill. That's always a worry.
It can't be.
I agree, Tez. I agree. I think it's a fabulous move.
Just watch the winger, McGilvray. He's more interested in what Paul Smith's doing. Martin Ridyard's one-on-one with Miles Greenwood, and Greenwood goes around him.
Greenwood gets around and gets the ball down.
They're looking at the ground in now. That's a try.
But is it?
Yes, Bill. Confident.
Third time lucky. Is it a try? Yes, it is. And it's the first try of the game, and it's gone to Paul White. His 21st of the season. To Miles Greenwood, his 7th of the season, beg your pardon. And eventually, the duck is broken. The third time of asking, the first points are scored.
Well, there's the mistake from Leigh. Tommy Golding, he just loses possession, and then they give a penalty away. But this couldn't have been chalked off. As I said earlier, you need your dummy runners going through, but Dean McGilvray was at fault on that occasion. He comes out the line, he's more interested in what Paul Smith is doing. And Miles Greenwood, he only has eyes for that try line. He goes around Ridyard to score the opening try.
So Danny Jones from the sidelines. His first kick of the day. And he's pushed it across the face of the posts. But Halifax are ahead by 4 points to 0. Greenwood the try scorer. And Leigh eventually unable to withstand the pressure that Halifax had been building.
I'm more interested in the reaction of both teams now. Here we see the move again. It's a fabulous move. Lots of bodies and players in motion, making it virtually impossible for Leigh to anticipate who's going to get the ball. But are Leigh going to be motivated and push on and get stronger, or are Halifax going to keep this momentum?
Here's Gannon. Halifax almost making a mess of the restart as they left it to each other, but it was Gannon who took it forward. Bannister now. Paul White picks up and scoots as far as the 20. And Bezic waiting patiently, then puts the kick in. Across field, away from Donlan. It's a good kick. Goddard is chasing, so too is Danny Jones. That was a great kick from Bob Bezic.
I think it's a fabulous kick. I think he popped out to kick right. He saw that the back field was already covered and just slipped it into the left-hand part of the pitch. Good read from Bob Bezic.
So a setback for the Centurions early on. 20 minutes gone, 4-0 they trail. Just inside the Halifax half now. Here is Ellis, and Ellis, Donlan. Dad Steve was a winner with Leigh in the 1982 championship winning side. And now Stewart looking to bring more silverware to the family vaults, and that kick, well, it swirls back. Well taken by Haley. Great take. That one seemed to be getting away from him, and he stretched for that ahead of the Centurions players.
Well, that was a brave catch from Dave Haley. Never took his eyes off the ball. Look at that. Even possibly jumped a little bit too early, but the fact that he outstretched his arms got him out of trouble. Super take from Dave Haley.
And it's turned defence into attack for Halifax. And they get the penalty. There's a hand in there now then. Will they go for two here? Nash just on the field, penalised.
Well, the last couple of sets of six that Leigh have had to defend, they really are struggling. Halifax are willing to get up and play that ball so quick to give the teammates behind them a chance. Now they decide to go for 2 points.
Well, that goes back to that superb catch from James Haley. I think I called him Dave a moment or two before. Great bravery. Look at this. Jumped high. The wind is swirling all over the place. The Island international never took his eyes off the ball. Got the field position for his teammates to just clock over 2 more points.
And it'll be Danny Jones, the man whose drop goal got Halifax to this final in dramatic circumstances against Featherstone, of course. Looking for his first success of the afternoon with the boot. This one a bit more to his liking, perhaps. Just about head on to the posts, on target, and Halifax nudging themselves a bit further ahead. 6-0 they lead now here at Bloomfield Road in Blackpool. I wouldn't say the sun is about to come out, but it's certainly the most pleasant it has been so far today.
Well, they've just turned the floodlights on. That's what it is. Do you know, we've got to give credit to both of these sides. There's only been 3 handling errors, and the pitch is very, very greasy. As I said earlier, both teams getting into each other. That's a good kick-off from Leigh, and look at this for a chase.
And Michaeli Azu, despite his strength, well, he's going to just about keep his place on the field of play. That's great work by the PNG international. There were 4 of them trying to shove him over the line.
Well, that is not a bad effort. He was stood flat-footed. There was Leigh players coming flying in, hitting the collision. Very good, solid body contact, but they still couldn't push him behind the line.
I don't think Michaeli Azu will thank Paul White for giving him that hospital pass.
They haven't looked that secure at the restarts, Halifax. Well, that's the second, and they didn't deal with that one that convincingly. And again, Michaeli Azu runs into some solid defence, and he gives as good as he gets. Well, he quite often he gives a good deal harder than he gets, Michaeli Azu, as Ian Morrison will testify, unfortunately.
In defence as well as attack. There's only one way Michaeli Azu will play, and that is straight and direct.
Maiden. But Paul Smith is there to make the tackle. Sam Barlow just on the field as well to lend his enthusiasm. There's bags of that from Barlow. Nanin plays the ball. McGilvray in off his wing to make some yards for the side. And Robbie Hunter-Paul on the field as well. And this time Michaeli Azu couldn't make the contact stick, and Leigh get away with it, and Goulden plays it. On the last, and the kick from Ridyard, well, finds touch in the corner, but Halifax will be satisfied with that.
A little bit hurried, that kick there. I have a feeling that when Michaeli Azu comes out and tries to put that shot onto James Taylor, Leigh were possibly looking to kick from middle. So that was just an ordinate. Here we see, that's the kick-off return. That's like a different sport, that one.
Do you know what was impressive about Halifax in that set of 6? The urgency to get back and retreat 10 yards to come forward and defend. Very impressive.
Of course, Brian Noble still working alongside Matt Callan in the consultancy role at Halifax until the end of this month, I understand. I'm sure they'd like to keep him as long as they can, given his massive experience of big-time success. Interesting to see Brian Noble and Robbie Paul in opposition. Of course, shared so much glory together. Ben Black under pressure. Good pressure it is as well from the Centurions. Trying to get an early kick away, I think Black was. Couldn't do so. Penkovic off the bench to buzz around. That's the 5th tackle, though. Black. And Jones has given him some space, himself some space to make the kick. But it's straight downfield into the arms of Steve Maiden. Goddard on the chase, makes the tackle.
Well, positioned himself well for that kick, Steve Maiden, then. The wind is swirling, but he was in full control of where that ball was going to be. Never took his eye off it. Full concentration.
Steve Maiden, a Northern Rail Cup final loser in 2007 with Whitehaven. One of the 9 players in the Leigh side, in the Leigh squad, I should say, who've got experience in this competition. 8, the other 8 were all winners. Steve Maiden, the only loser, hoping to be a winner this afternoon, but his side trails 6-0 and they're up against a really enthusiastic Halifax side. Well, you wouldn't expect them to be anything else in a Northern Rail final. Greenwood fields the kick.
No, you're exactly right, Bill, and you normally see that on the last tackle, one man will fly out the line and try and put pressure on the kicker. On that occasion, there was 3 Halifax players coming from all directions, trying to put the Leigh kicker off.
Move! Mark a square!
Jacob Fairbank tackled just over his own 40-metre line. Warren Seat.
Just on that kick pressure, Tez, as long as those kick pressure players are coming from the inside and not leaving a gap or an open door on the outside, that's the only danger.
Barlow plays the ball, Penkovic, and Penkovic, Michaeliezu wasn't waiting for that one. The ball's gone backwards and it's Leigh who'll snap it up. The referee will eventually bring him back for the knock-on. Had to think about it, did Mr. Thomason, and then says it was a Leigh knock-on. Taylor says, "You're kidding," or words to that effect.
Leigh player, no doubt in my mind, but when this ball goes down on the floor, let's have a look who it is. Is it Thornley? Yeah, there it is. Andy Thornley just knocks the ball forward, getting in the faces of the Halifax players, Leigh Centurions now. None asked and none given in this game.
Lucky to get away with it though, Halifax there. Haley now, like his centre partner Goddard, hasn't seen a lot of action this season, James Haley. Here goes Warrensey. Had a fantastic game in the June the 2nd match, Rob Warrensey with those 2 tries. Dylan Nash, likewise, he's come off the bench into the action for Halifax. Leigh will certainly be careful when Dylan Nash is around to throw any speculative passes. And now here goes Bannister. Bannister is over the line. Slithered over, but it's another video ref decision.
Check the grounding, please.
Grounding is the call from the referee this time.
Well, I'm sure Stephen Bannister gets this ball around. No problem with that whatsoever. And he does ever so well. He spins over. He knows that he's not going to make the line, but he knows exactly where the try line is. What does the video referee, Phil Bentham, say to this?
Not so much debate about this one. And Stephen Bannister gets his 7th try. The former Saints man who's been around the block a bit. He's still only 23 years of age, but has been a regular fixture at Halifax for the last 3 seasons.
Well, the 2 tries that Halifax have scored have come on the back of mistakes from Leigh. They hurried there, Andy Thornley. He loses that ball, it goes forward. But Halifax, a very hard team to stop when they're playing on the front foot. The offload from Barlow, Penkovic, he pulls the players in. It's Jamie Ellis who jumps the line. He's looking to take Penkovic down. He can't do that. But the big man in the back row, Sam Barlow, look at that, 2 Leigh defenders can't get into ground. Jamie Ellis, his hips are facing the wrong way, and Stephen Bannister goes in for another try for Halifax.
Jones just a second ago and misses with that one. 10-0 Halifax lead here in Blackpool in the Northern Rail Cup final. And second rower Stephen Bannister with the 2nd Halifax try. Matt Calland, well, takes a lot to please the Halifax coach.
Well, when we previewed this game, Brian asked me the question about the bench, and I looked at Halifax's bench. He's one of those bench players, and the impact that he will have, along with Barlow, who offloaded the ball to Penkovic. Dylan Nash has been involved heavily as well. They're going to increase and up the levels of intensity.
The only block in the copybook is the goal kicking. Just 1 success from 3 attempts for Danny Jones there in possession. Of course, mentioned Lee Patterson being out of action with a knee problem, but Danny Jones is a very effective goal kicker. He's kicked 57 so far this season, but it is a difficult day for the goal kickers, that's for certain. But Halifax building again, and here is Dylan Nash. Got the nod over Frank Wittine on the bench for Matt Calland. Jones hoists that one, doesn't go a great way forward. Goddard pops the ball down, and it'll be the turnover. Halifax couldn't turn that into anything worthwhile. Fairbanks it was who was caught in possession.
Well, Leigh Centurions really starting to struggle with the go forward from Halifax. Every player from Halifax landing on the front, poking the nose forward, and it all came about from the run, from the kick-off from Leigh. He's just willing to run harder than the opposition are willing to hit him.
And Leigh get a very welcome penalty. Barlow, adjudged to have interfered at the play the ball there.
Well, there's the enthusiasm you talked about. That's what you get with Sam Barlow. His endeavour, his enthusiasm, his passion sometimes boils over. He'll need to control that. The environment of a cup final, every mistake can be costly.
Nash shrugs aside the challenge of Barlow again. Certainly puts himself about Barlow. Robbie Hunter-Paul on there to pull the strings. And Leigh, for the first time in some considerable time, putting pressure on the Halifax line now. And then the ball goes to ground. Knock on, says the referee, and frustration beginning to boil. Oh, and to talk of enthusiasm, Sam Barlow's involved again.
Well, Sam Barlow come running in then to protect his teammates. But you could see the frustration in Robbie Hunter-Paul. He's behind dummy half. He's telling his players to pull up. Sam Barlow still not taking a backward step. Stephen Bannister pointing to his head saying, think about it, think about it. We can't afford to lose yet. To get Simbin. There's the simple mistake from James Taylor. And then Fairbank comes in and Jamie Ellis doesn't like it. He comes in to protect the young Fairbank. Stu Little he's in there as well.
And it didn't have anything to do with Sam Barlow.
And I don't think Fairbank needs looking after. He's anything like his uncles. Comes from a strong tradition, Jacob Fairbank.
The referee has calmed things down, had a word with one or two people, but we might not have heard the last of that particular little confrontation. In fact, Barlow and Hill, who were just going at each other a moment ago, packing down opposite each other in the scrum there without any further to do.
It's all forgotten about now, Bill. The markers need to do a better job on the scooters from the dummy half. They've got to split forward. There's no point in splitting sideways. Just watch what they do now. You know that Paul White's going to run. You've got to move forward on him. The only people that were moving forward then was the defensive line.
And they were offside.
Yep, so all it needs to do is that, yeah, White knew that there was one man on the floor, so you can see automatically that Chris Hill, he's backing off, waiting for the defensive line to catch up with him.
Halifax, the 11th different finalist in this competition. Could they be the 7th different winners of the trophy? A long way to go yet, but after just over half an hour, they lead by 10 points to 0 here. Looking to follow Batley last year with their name on the trophy for the first time. And Fairbank plays the ball just about on the 20-metre line in the Leigh half, and Mikhaili Aizu played for Hull Kingston Rovers in this competition earlier in his career. Plays the ball, Penkovic, darting run and still able to get the pass away, but Greenwood couldn't take it, and Ellis it is who picks it up for the Centurions, who really haven't got their game together yet. Leigh, they're trailing 10-0, they've had the one disallowed by the video ref.
Well, Miles Greenwood, he snatched at that, but we've got to give credit to the way Halifax are defending. We turned up here today thinking that it was going to be Leigh's defensive work and their kicking game that probably get them the victory, but Halifax, they want to defend.
Great pass from Robbie Hunter-Paul there to get the pass away to Ellis, who was then tackled by Jones. Short pass, but clattering tackle.
But that was preempted by Nash. All he had to do was take it forward.
Mills. Mikhaili Aizu makes that tackle. That's the 5th, and now then, Ridyard. Time to pick his spots, and it's a good kick. McGilvery chasing, but Warrancy claims it and gets away. And Warrancy has done this before. I don't think he'll go the late guard too soon. You don't bank on people missing tackles like that. What a run from Warrancy from just about on his own dead ball line to the 40-metre line. That is galvanising, inspiring stuff from Rob Warrency.
What wonderful, wonderful wing play. He catches the ball. I thought he'd caught it in goal, but he didn't wait for the referee. He kept running, and you've got to be brave when you're returning that ball and everybody's eyes are wide open thinking, I'm going to knock this lad's lights out here. And Rob Warrency just keeps pumping his legs and gets 25, 30 metres. Great work.
That's the 5th tackle, and they're way further upfield than probably they had any right to expect from that kick. And Penkovic puts the kick into the corner, and Maiden hounded down by Paul White, and then lashes out at White, and White in fact will be penalised.
Well, he just done all the hard work, Paul White. You can see he gets on top of Maiden. He's won that tackle. Steve Maiden, he's fighting to get up. Gives the penalty away, but that's a stat we don't see very often. 7 missed tackles to Leigh Centurions, and Halifax only missing 1.
Go, Sam, keep coming!
Here's Mills stretching for that pass. Over his own 20-metre line.
Go.
McGilvray.
Free.
And he's tackled on the 40, and Leigh just struggling to make a progress here in the face of some really determined. Oh, that look forward from Robbie Hunter-Paul to Duffy. It's got away with it. Duffy is tackled just shy of the 40 in the Halifax half now, and Ridyard with the kick. Barlow trying to put pressure on him. This time it's White under pressure. That's going to sail out on the full. It was caught on the wind.
Well, things just aren't going right for Leigh Centurions at the minute. They need to play through the line, and Martin Ridyard, he'll be furious with himself coming up with a kick like that. There was good pressure from Halifax, and you can see the kick just goes straight out.
Ridyard, so often the man of the match winner on Sky Sports for his side, with some standout performances. But that wasn't a standout kick from him, but just demonstrating how difficult to judge this wind is. This stadium, Bluefield Road, is almost finished. We're in a nearly new stand, you'd have to say, but the ground still needs some work doing to it as the kick finds touch from Penkovic.
Well, Penkovic just dropping it on the end of his toe. I don't know whether he's looking for the magic man, Rob Warrency. Look at this, absolutely fantastic.
Discipline's good.
Running for his life, in fear for his life, because there's so many Leigh players who think, I've got him, I've got him, I've got him. No, I haven't. Tremendous work from Rob Warrency.
Come on, let's go.
Well, Warrency has feet on fire by the look of things today. Those orange boots. Blistering pace from him. They really can't afford to give him any space.
First.
He did it in the grand final. Halifax fans thinking there was a knock-on from Leigh there, from Robbie Hunter-Paul. Nash. Barlow all over him. Nash dumps the ball down. Ridyard is hounded down by Haley.
It doesn't look controlled from Leigh Centurions. They're looking to play when they're not even going forward. They're coming off the back of slow play, the balls. And there's not much on.
Ellis will try and create something. Confusion there, because that white ball was suddenly lost in amongst the blue and white balloons there that the Halifax fans presumably have released that side of the ground.
Did one of the Leigh players dive on a balloon now?
Well, it's a good kick from Ellis. Look at that. It's difficult to know which one is the pigskin, but Ben Black made the right decision, and with less than a minute to go, I think Halifax are going to go in delighted with a superb first half performance.
And delighted to get a penalty, and again Leigh not square at the play, the ball suckered into that one, I think.
Well, again, it's the speed of which they're playing the ball. Look, John Duffy's still not up to his feet, but that's the right thing. He needs to split forward, but he's got to be square. He's got to be stood in front of the ref. They've not made touch with that kick.
First real blot on the copybook in this first half from Halifax. I think it was Black failing to find touch. A bit Penkovic it was, I beg his pardon, but it was a bit casual. Ian Millwood heading down to the sidelines. His side struggled in this first half, but Ian Millwood, vastly experienced coach, that ball has been knocked on. Ben Black hoping perhaps that he might get a chance before the whistle sounds, but not to be. But these Halifax supporters delighted with what they've seen from their side, who've dominated the first 4.